All right. Well, good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where in this world you are joining us from today. We have a jam-packed session ahead of us, but don't worry. About halfway through, we will have a scheduled short snack and comfort break. My name is Andrea Perkins. I work at Headquarters Air Force in the Airmen and Family Care Division, and I will be your MC for today's event. Our theme for today is Be Well and promoting help-seeking behavior for overall wellness in mind, body, and wallet. We're on the heels of a pandemic that has changed how we do business personally, professionally, as a society. And today we'll take a look at what wellness looks like in a post or nearly post-pandemic world. The goal is to get you thinking about how you can be well and equip you with information and resources that will assist you and airmen, guardians, and families you serve to stay well or where to seek help when needed. In order to address the multiple dimensions of wellness, we asked experts from several different areas to be with us and provide tools from across the spectrum. But before we get started, we are honored to have with us today Mrs. Sharene Brown, spouse to the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, General C.Q. Brown, and Mrs. Jennifer Saltzman, spouse to the Chief of Space Operations, General Chance Saltzman. Mrs. Brown, thank you for championing today's event. I'll now turn it over to you for opening comments.
Well, thank you, Andrea. That was wonderful. Hey, everyone. It's good to see you and happy fall. And, after doing our session last night, it's just a little nice to be up in the morning with my cup of tea to keep me motivated. Well, thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us for another session with our KeySpouse engagement series. I so enjoy this time we get to spend together in these engagements because I'm always learning something new. Our team at A1S and the Air Force Personnel Center, or AFPC, always do an incredible job at coordinating these events, and I am grateful for the hard work, time, and effort that they put into this. I'm quite sure this will be a great one as well. Be well in body, mind, and wallet is the theme today. Overall wellness is such an important topic, and we can all use some tips on improving our wellness and making it a priority in our lives, especially this time of year. Our Air and Space Force families are resilient, but a way of life can bring tough challenges and stress, as you well know. With the current economic situation, what it is, and the holiday season fast approaching, these stressors can quickly intensify. So our goal here today is to help better prepare you and better prepare yourself and the families you support for optimal wellness in the coming months. As we listen to our experts today, please think about areas in your life where you have had success when it comes to wellness. And I encourage you to share those success stories. We can benefit greatly from each other's knowledge and experience. Being resilient doesn't mean we're always perfect. Sometimes we just need a little help. I'd like to thank our panelists and speakers on the line with us today for your willingness to share your expertise in mind, body, and wallet wellness. I'd also like to say this is an extra special engagement because we get to welcome Mrs. Jennifer Saltzman. Mrs. Saltzman has been the new Chief of Space Operations spouse for less than a week. So let's put together our Zoom hands as I turn the mic over to her. Jennifer?
All right, thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Mrs. Brown. Thank you, Andrea. So appreciate this opportunity to get to hang out with you guys for a couple of hours and again, make connections, learn all these wonderful new techniques and resources and everything that there is out there for everybody to help all of our guardian and airman families. I'll just say thank you again. This is going to be quick because there's lots, it's jam-packed. Thank you to the panelists and all the key spouses and everyone that's tuning in this morning. You are not going to be sorry. There's all kinds of great information. So thanks again. And thanks, Andrea.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, Mrs. Brown and Mrs. Saltzman. We appreciate your leadership in bringing connection to our spouses. It ultimately impacts our readiness and resilience of our airmen, guardians, and families. AFPC.af.mil is a treasure trove of information for this event and all things KeySpouse related. The actual link has been or will be shared in the chat throughout this engagement. For those on the phone, it's easy to find by Googling AFPC KeySpouse. By early next week, we'll post the recording of this event, the slides, and all question and answers. We'll also send an email to the account with which you registered to let you know it's been posted with the link on where to access it. The agenda for today will begin with a 49-minute wellness panel, followed by a 6-minute break. We'll pick back up with 2 speakers on financial readiness and well-being, and then conclude with a 22-minute KeySpouse best practice panel before closing comments. Yes, we tried to be very precise with timing to pack in as much information as we possibly could. All right, on to our first panel. Our first panel features experts from organizations that promote wellness in various ways. You can find their bios by checking the email that you registered for today's event with, or dive right into that treasure trove at AFPC's KeySpouse website I just mentioned. We're going to do a lightning round of introductions so you can see everybody's smiley faces, all bright and sunshiny here this morning. We're going to take about 45 seconds or less per person, starting with our teammates at Air Force Resiliency. Dr. Perkins, could you please kick us off with some intros?
Hey, good morning. I absolutely can. Thank you so much for having me. I feel extremely honored to be sitting on the panel today. My name is Janelle Perkins. I am the Senior Policy Analyst for the Integrated Resilient Division here at headquarters of the Air Force. Do a lot with prevention and resilience as a whole for all things that come through our office. So really excited to share our goodness, if you will, with you all. And I am really excited to hear from the rest of the panel members today. So thank you so much for having me.
Good morning, everyone. Master Sergeant Anthony. I also work at Headquarters Air Force in the Integrated Resilience Office. I currently serve as the Outreach Program Manager of the Strategic Partnership Division. We manage the DAF, Community Action Board, and Community Action Team, addressing issues affecting our airmen, guardians, and their families. And I am honored and privileged that you all have invited me to be a part of this panel this morning. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. David Merrifield. I work at the Office of the Chief of Chaplains here in the DC area, and I'm so thankful to be part of this panel today. Just help share some of the great things that the chaplain corps can provide in your units. Take care.
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name's Aaron Tritch. I'm a clinical psychologist at the Air Force Medical Readiness Agency, and there I'm in charge of the Air Force Alcohol, Drug Abuse Prevention and Treatment Program, and I'm also leading an initiative on opening up our access within our clinics. And sorry, I can't get my camera to work, so I'm just a disembodied voice today. Over.
We'll adapt and overcome. All good, Lieutenant Colonel Tritch. Ms. Smith?
Good morning. Thank you, everybody, for taking time to join. My name is Kelly Smith, and I serve as the Program Manager for Military OneSource and one of the Associate Directors for Military Community Support Programs within the Office of Military Community and Family Policy. My role here today is to speak to the Military and Family Life Counseling Program, better known as the MFLAC program, on behalf of my colleague, Ms. Wendy Swinson, who's the Program Manager for the MFLAC program. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, ma'am. And Miss Aldana.
Good morning. My name is Michelle Aldana. I'm a program analyst in military community support programs with Kelly Smith, and I'm here to speak about Military OneSource. I'm really thankful to be here today. I have been an Air Force spouse as well, so I just really love being in this crowd of people. You guys are my people, so thanks for having me.
Thank you, ma'am. And Lieutenant Colonel Snyder.
Hey, good morning. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Tracy Snyder. I work at Defense Health Headquarters, Air Force Medical Readiness Agency. I'm a registered dietitian, so I'm the nutrition consultant to the Surgeon General, but I'm also Chief of Air Force Health Promotion. So very, very excited to be here. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, panelists, for those super speedy speed round intros and taking time to share your expertise with us today. Again, you can find their bios at the AFPC website just for reference as we go throughout this session or the email that you register to this event with. All right, let's begin with the first question. Mental health, wellness, resiliency. It's all really intertwined and multidimensional. This fall, our resiliency teammates finalized efforts they champion that will help us frame our discussion. Master Sergeant Anthony, could you please introduce us to the spectrum of resilience?
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Perkins. So everyone, on the 23rd of September, the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, General Brown, and the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Chief Bass, signed the open letter to our airmen and their families and released this graphic of the spectrum of resilience. You can download a copy of this letter and the graphic by visiting our website at resilience.af.mil. The Space Force is still new and are still establishing their programs and their resources. And while this letter and graphic are addressed to airmen and their families, the spectrum of resilience does apply both to our airmen and our guardians. The spectrum of resilience represents the many sources of support airmen and guardians and their families can turn to in a time of need. There are 5 levels of the spectrum of resilience. The attached graphic is not an all-inclusive, but represents the spectrum of care that is available at each level. Starting with the individual for dealing with stress, the physical, mental, and spiritual fitness, finances, and well-being. The next level involves your close relationships with your family, friends, and loved ones. Going to the next level, we have our peer and social connections that include various groups, clubs, organizations, or social networks that individuals may be a part of. This level of care can include our co-workers, frontline leaders that can show us the available guidance that apply. The next level are our support entities of various volunteers, prevention personnel working at the wings that provide programs and educational services to promote resilience. The last level of the spectrum of care is the clinical and medical health level, where individuals seek clinical professionals that provide care and crisis intervention. Altogether, this spectrum of support provides the highest quality of care and strength whenever it is needed. Engaging early with the spectrum of resilience supports a healthy mind and body that strengthens the ability to cope with stress. We encourage airmen and guardians and their families to seek out help when needed at any level and to be a support, help, or bridge for others across the full spectrum of resilience. Leadership is one of the greatest assets for a resilient and ready force. So we are equipping our leaders to foster a healthy climate by connecting with their airmen and guardians, setting the right example, providing guidance, and knowing what resources exist for their people. If you have any questions pertaining to the spectrum of resilience, please put them in the comments. We do have teammates from the Integrated Resilience Office standing by to answer any of your questions. Again, thank you, Ms. Perkins, for allowing me to introduce the spectrum of resilience.
Thank you, Master Sergeant Anthony, for introducing that spectrum of resilience. I think it highlights why these engagements and this engagement in particular are so important, because I think we have representatives from each of those sections of support that you talked about today. So again, take this opportunity to engage with each other in the chat and with the panelists here today as we tell you about all of the great resources that are out there to support overall wellness. So thank you for framing today's discussion for us, Master Sergeant Anthony. All right, on to our next question. On the heels of a pandemic, we're trying to establish a new normal. Can you please share your thoughts on what the new normal for wellness looks like in your prospective organizations? Ms. Aldana, could you kick us off?
Yes, what a great question. For Military OneSource, it's still, 24/7, 365 days. You can contact us anywhere in the world. So that's still the same. What we did notice is obviously there's been an increase in video sessions and sessions and connections through telephone, video, chat. So, which is really great because we have a generation of people that also prefer that type of communication anyways. instead of like that face to face, but we get to do both now, which is really great. And we're able to see that the reasons that people call have been consistent. It's the top 3 reasons people call Military One Source, and it moves from 1 to 2 and 3, have been non-medical counseling. And then the number of reason people call non-medical counseling is for relationships. And then our finance and our meal tax, and then our spouse education and career opportunities. So those consistently stay the top 3. They kind of move just based on, when tax season comes around, our meal tax probably, will increase. But the biggest change is really being able to meet people and increasing our ability to meet people through technology and through video and through telephone and through live chat, which is really great. I know I'm not a super tech savvy person, but I know that if my kids were trying to, they would love it. And they're like, yeah, we can just chat. I know some people that would never answer the phone and will text until they absolutely cannot avoid it. But I'm the first person like, let me just call. I just can't even text this fast. I don't know how someone texts 3 paragraphs before I get 1 sentence out. So we have noticed that increase in ability to connect through technology and through that video session, which is really great because we're just able to connect with people more, because sometimes we can't leave our house and we're at home and doing things. So it's really great to be able to meet people where they are.
Awesome. Thank you for those comments. Ms. Smith, can you follow up?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Andrea. So with the military and family life counseling program, when the pandemic hit and all of the stay-at-home orders went into place, our footprint of over 3,000 MPLACs that are positioned both here in the United States as well as OCONUS had to pivot very quickly and move to providing virtual, or better known as telehealth, non-medical counseling support. This was not an easy task, but it was something that we knew that what we had to do in order to continue to provide support to our service members and families. For those of you that may not be familiar, the Military and Family Life Counseling Program, better known as the MPLAC program, provides non-medical counseling support to service members and their families. And people often ask, well, what is non-medical counseling? And how we define it is that it is short-term solution-focused counseling that does not rise to the threshold of meeting a diagnosis. So if someone has a diagnosis of depression or post-traumatic stress disorder or a TBI, traumatic brain injury, and they're wanting to receive treatment for that, that would require more than a short-term solution-focused kind of setting. And so our non-medical counseling is designed to address everyday life stressors that we know our airmen and our guardians face and their families face. So whether that's, help with your relationship or parenting skills or managing grief and loss or stress management, that's what our MPLACs are there to provide support around. Our MPLACs are what we consider to be our boots on the ground. So they are there at our family readiness centers, they are within our child development centers, they're in our schools, they're embedded within units, providing that face-to-face support for our families, up to 12 sessions per issue per year. But when the pandemic hit, we had to do this really quick shift and change. And now that I think we're out of the pandemic, I don't know, we're in this post-COVID environment. We still have families that really benefit and like to use that telehealth option. And so our MPLACs are still offering telehealth as needed in those different locations. So I think this is something we will continue to do as there is a need for families that are seeking that type of support.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Sounds like you both have expanded some options with credit, maybe, to the pandemic that we never thought that we would have to have. But now our clients have a couple more ways to connect, and that's awesome. All right, Lieutenant Colonel Tritch, you look great.
Thank you. Yeah, it may be better for everybody that I'm doing this like radio instead of TV. So still getting caffeinated on this side of things. So the mental health new normal, I think the pandemic really reinforced a lot of the things that we already knew, but it allows us to refocus, like those relationships that are in our lives and our daily routines as our world shrank. and our ability to get out and about and travel decreased. The idea that we need a wide variety of coping skills, because sometimes we have kind of a narrow or a small tool set, expanding those has been really important. So that's one of the things that we're focusing on. I think also mental health, like I think you've already heard, that we were able to rapidly flex toward engagement in behavioral health options. And that's, I think you saw that across the country. It's not just in the military. That, you know, if you look for online telehealth stuff, it's everywhere in the private sector, and it's just growing. And so I think that was a really big change. It just forced us to go light years into the futures. It was a very slow pace into the technology realm, and now we're speeding through it. And the Defense Health Agency, they're continuing to look to expand their resources. And unfortunately, we get into that behavioral health, we get into some struggles when it's overseas. And so they're still attempting to tackle that problem, but providers have licenses, and you need to be licensed in the area that the telephone call is occurring. And if you're in Japan, we don't have a lot of depth in the bench there for telehealth or other overseas locations. And then, of course, after any kind of like post-disaster period or post-pandemic period, we expect to see some increase in just mental health symptoms, like increase in depression and anxiety, insomnia, stress. And for folks who are already experiencing some of those things prior, we'd anticipate those worsen. Now, our numbers decreased during the pandemic, but we're seeing them come back now. It's not that necessarily mental health concerns went away. They didn't magically disappear, although some people found that they were less stressed getting to work from home and maybe not interacting with a challenging coworker or boss. But a lot of people, it's just access, that they just were focused on other things and dropped care. And we're seeing that rebound here in 21 and 22. That's what I have. Over.
Thank you so much, sir. Next, we're hear from Lieutenant Colonel Snyder. So for those of you who mentioned that your area of wellness that you have a little bit of a challenge to maintain is in the physical realm, listen closely. Ma'am?
Yeah, thanks. Really what we saw from the pandemic really bridged the gap, the spectrum from those who were, as we discussed previously, the cookie dough never actually made it onto the cookie sheet, and we found that some of those habits were negative habits, perhaps were reinforced. But then, really, what I feel like has came out of it, and overall, has been a shift really towards more preventative wellness. We saw the impacts of different lifestyle factors, particularly those that can contribute to, obesity or type 2 diabetes, and the increased risk that it had for folks that developed COVID. And so, simply that and really focusing on protecting our health, and then, shifting towards, nutrition, which is definitely my passion. I feel like that it even families had time and almost had to focus on creating healthy meals, and restaurants were limited service, and so a lot of those things that we were used to with our busy lifestyles and after school activities and sporting events were essentially put on hold. And so we were able to really shift back to focusing on eating in the home and those factors that contribute to a healthy diet. So definitely I see a lot of health benefits that really came out of that. Over.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And last but not least, Chaplain Merrifield.
Thanks, Andrea. Wow, it's been a crazy 2.5 years, but I think from the chaplain corps perspective, we just have a new normal that just really longs to take care of airmen and guardians and their families more than anyone thought possible. And I think what we realized once again firsthand is that people really need connection and community to thrive, and isolation is not good. And we saw some communities that went into a little bit of helplessness, even some hopelessness. And so I think that it's true that a lot of the changes in the way that Chatham Corps uses this technology, especially with the virtual platforms like telecounseling, was effective. And but I think that the vital thing for us was not to neglect the need for physical presence. So I believe human beings were designed for that community. And so our chaplain corps gathers people of faith or people of non-faith into groups that have similar values and virtues, and really to explore their purpose and meaning. And we found that that was very successful during COVID, and we're continuing on in some of those areas. I mentioned this last night. I think one of the demographics of people seeking assistance that was on the increase and still is from the effects of the lockdowns are our teenagers. As chaplain, and more specifically as a father of two teenagers, I saw how this directly impacted our household. And so I thought that this demographic was going to thrive even more so, growing up on all the screens and virtual world things. But in reality, I think we saw that, and we're still seeing some of the effects with that. Also, lastly, I just want to mention that, you know, some of the relationships that were not doing so great before COVID, then you have couples that are now in the house with not a place to get away from each other for a period of time. Some of those relationships just didn't get better. And so we are continuing on helping to the best we can in those areas as well. That's all I had for this topic. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And I think that goes back to Miss Aldana's comments too about relationships always being in kind of the top three from her vantage point. Following up on that, the teenage issue of teenagers really struggling. Miss Smith or Miss Aldana, have either of you seen any of that or any of those struggles, or have any resources specifically for teens that you can talk on?
Yeah, I would absolutely love to speak. I'm glad you asked this question. Our team recently completed a evaluation of the child and youth behavioral portion, the CYB portion of the MPLAC program. So we have MPLACs that provide support to our adults, but they also provide support to our children and youth, whether they're at the Child Development Center, at schools on base, or at schools off base where military connected children are. And something that we found within the CYB RAND report, which should be released soon, mentioned that there was a lot of concerns around mental health challenges that children are experiencing, whether that is feelings of isolation, concerns around bullying, concerns around behavior of acting out, so whether that's hitting, and of course this is all dependent upon the age of the child, but hitting, biting, and just not knowing how to socialize. And so having that information and being guarded with that information, we are really working with our MPLACs, particularly our CYB MPLACs, to ensure that we are equipping parents as well as caregivers and teachers with the information they need to be able to support children as they kind of make that adjustment back into this new normal, and to develop some healthy coping strategies, and not necessarily act out, but then also that they have support when they're not feeling safe or they're feeling uncertain about things that may be happening. So just like adults, children can use our MPLAC services, whether that's in a group setting or individually with that MPLAC. And then within our CDCs or MPLACs do provide that support to our providers that are providing that care to our children, but then also provide support to parents as well. So again, that's that non-medical counseling support that's available, both CONUS and OCONUS for our families. Yep.
Awesome, ma'am. Thank you so much. Miss Aldana, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, as we talk about technology and people being home, all of us have to adjust to being around people. I know that we haven't really been in the office a ton. And when I'm in the office around a lot of people, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted. Also, like, how do I interact with people? Do I hug? Do I not hug? Do I shake hands? Do I just wave awkwardly? But I think we have a lot of brand new airmen who, like, the last 2 years of their high school career or their last 2 years of their college career, you know, they didn't interact with people. And sometimes you have well, all the time, we all have to learn how to communicate and be able to know what to say after, hey, how are you? You know, I heard that a lot. It's like, I don't really know what to say after, hey, how are you? I just kind of look, and I was like, yeah, I know, you guys just kind of stare at me. But being able to provide those opportunities to just make ourselves the best version of ourselves. And that could be through non-medical counseling, just saying, hey, I want to improve my ability to communicate with my family, my spouse, my, you know, my partner, my coworkers. Like, how do I become a better communicator, be better at creating those relationships and strengthening those relationships? So when you call Military One Source, you might just be like, hey, I just need help being able to communicate and be able to make those good connections, like make real solid connections. And they might connect you to a non-medical counselor. You might get to talk to a peer-to-peer support person. You might be able to talk to a health and wellness coach. Fortunately, we have master's level social science triage consultants that know what questions to ask to get you to where you need to be so that you can be your best version of yourself. Because we always, whatever the best looks like that day, we all deserve that opportunity to be our best. And so it's really great to be able to have those resources, but everyone needs it, as well as teens.
Thank you so much for those comments, ma'am. And you said it, everyone could use a little help. Help is a 4-letter word, but it is not a dirty word. So we can use it regularly in our vocabulary and practices, right? So thank you all for those comments. Okay. When we think about mental health, we often think of many of the organizations on the line with us today, like Military One Source, Military Family Life Counselors, and of course, mental health. How can the chapel and health promotions help to support mental wellness? Chaplain Merrifield, take it away.
All right, thank you. Hopefully I'm not going to use any bad words either on my end, so thank you. I think all of these areas of wellness are so interconnected and overlapping, and Chaplain Corps really strives to set a foundation underneath people's lives that set them up for the success. And I like to say that we try to do that proactively as much as we can because of storms of life. Here's an example. Many of you have PCS and driven long distances from one base to another. About 13 years ago, I was driving from Davis Monthan all the way to Maxwell in Montgomery, Alabama, with 2 little kids in the back of the car. And, you know, some days it felt like we were going backwards instead of forwards because of the, you know, challenges there. Well, my daughter, we're in the middle of Texas. You could see for miles and miles and miles, blue skies, you know, you can just see forever. And all of a sudden, she starts saying, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy, there's something following us." I'm like looking around, I'm like, we're in the middle of nowhere, baby. You know, there's nothing out there. A few minutes later, there it is again. It's coming after us. I'm like, what is she? Because she wasn't one to just tell stories. And then finally, she's like, "Daddy, Daddy." And right in front of our truck, a huge tumbleweed crossed our path. You know, and so life was going really well. You know, we were just cruising along in the sunshine, and then stuff happens. Stuff happens. And some of you realize that you've just come out of a storm. Maybe you're in a storm today. If you haven't been either of those places, you might be going into a storm. So I think setting those firm foundations underneath people's lives helps with all of these areas of wellness, in particular mental health and spiritual health.
Thank you so much, sir. I think we can all relate to children, as somebody put in the chat, with a heart. So thank you for sharing that story. Lieutenant Colonel Snyder.
Yeah, thanks. And I'll, you know, kind of to further what Chaplain Merrifield mentioned, you know, that foundation and having that good foundation of good nutrition, being physically active. And one of the things that Air Force Health Promotion focuses on that is incredibly important to our overall mental health and mental wellness is sleep and really sleep hygiene and not being fatigued and because all of those are really contributing factors when it comes to you know, being mentally mentally well and resilient and able to deal with those, day-to-day things that happen, that come in, the tumbleweeds that essentially cross our path. And so really focusing on those things. And that's really where Air Force Health Promotion can come into play. And we really focus on the large scale things that have a great impact versus individual. And so getting involved, in connecting through community gardens and cooking demos and really getting out and into the communities in which our health promoters actually live, work, and play is the biggest part, I think, in helping to strengthen that mental wellness through setting that foundation, and then really building on those connections. Over.
Thank you so much, ma'am, and for both of your inputs there. Sounds like the firm foundations will really get us going where we need to be, and then know when to seek help when we need it for when those storms arise, because they will inevitably come upon us. All right, so thank you so much. And it looks like we have time for one more question. And this is for everyone on the panel. So can you please tell us about some recent initiatives or maybe even lesser known opportunities or resources for establishing or maintaining wellness? Dr. Perkins, we'll start with you.
Oh, okay, thank you. So I first want to just say that our office is doing a lot to make sure that people understand the difference between actual wellness and resilience, right? So wellness is how we're doing today. Like, how are you doing? How's everything going? What's going in your life? And then resilience is measured as the time or effort, space that a person would take to get back to whatever their normal or close to normal wellness is, right? And that includes both positive and not so positive things that happen to our life, right? So we can get a promotion that could kind of throw off our wellness a little bit, just as something not so positive happening in our life could throw off our wellness. But one thing I'd like to highlight coming out of our office is, some of you may have heard of this program called Connect to Care. And Connect to Care is formally named, or formally called, No Wrong Door. It came out with the IRC recommendations with the sexual assault assessments. Basically what it's saying is, you can go to any of our helping services across the DAF at any installation seeking services, and if you happen to land at the wrong door, we'll make sure we get you to the right door, right? So that you get seen. So for instance, if I were to go knock on Chaplain Merrifield's office door, although we have a great conversation, I'm sure we'd have plenty to talk about, but maybe I'm seeking something more financial or something more childcare related or whatnot. Chaplain Merrifield has an entire list, a matrix, if you will, of folks that he could refer me to make sure that I get to the right resources. So thus the term No Wrong Door, now the Connect to Care, because we want to make sure that our airmen, guardians, families, civilians, lottie-dottie, everybody, as I say, would get the care and help that they need. And that also speaks into our spectrum of resilience, right? So you can see all of the helping agencies that may need, you may need to access, and every provider has that at their fingertips, so they can make sure they get the person to the right resource. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Master Sergeant Anthony, you got anything to add to that?
No, ma'am. I think Dr. Perkins covered it all. Like she said, just knowing that there is a difference between resilience and well-being. Thank you, ma'am.
All righty, sir. Thank you. Lieutenant Colonel Tritch, you have any recent initiatives or lesser known opportunities related to wellness?
Yeah, thank you. So when I look at that spectrum of resilience, and I look at the far right, it's kind of our domain. Those formal helping resources, so the ADAPT, the mental health clinic, and whatnot. But access can be an issue, and one of the things that both DHA and TRICARE have been trying to get after are those access issues. So one resource that I don't know how well it's been advertised or how well people know about it is Doctors on Demand. And so that is a telehealth option that's provided by TRICARE. So just like regular outpatient services for mental health stuff, There's no referral required. You can just go in there. Now, your active duty member in your household, they would need a referral to those resources, but as dependents, we don't need it. And it's going to be similar to other outpatient services, right? They're going to be focusing on things like anxiety, depression, sleep, trauma, and so it's a really nice way to access it. And for many parents, right, it's hard to get to an appointment. You know, we don't necessarily want to drag our kids into the therapy room because it sometimes works as a limiting factor. So with that telehealth option, it makes it just a little bit more accessible and potentially a little bit more private, so you don't have the kiddos staring at you as you dive into challenging topics. Again, just like with the DHA telehealth, overseas is a challenge. You can find Doctors on Demand. I believe it's right now it's just an iOS app or their website, which is doctorsondemand.com. But you can go to TRICARE to get more information, so you can look at your region and see what's offered there. And that is all for me.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Smith, any initiatives or opportunities for our wellness?
Yeah, I would love to highlight one of the newest offerings that we are providing through the Military and Family Life Counseling Program. We know that Ms. Aldana mentioned earlier, the top reason that people seek support or counseling from the Military One Source program or the MFLAC program is to address relationship challenges and relationship stressors specific to romantic relationships. And so we launched the relationship checkup through our MFLAC program. We are currently training the entire MFLAC footprint, meaning all 3,000 MFLACs on this evidence-based tool that they can use with couples. And so we like to think of relationships like any of our other health systems. They need our regular attention and care. And so with the relationship checkup, couples will be able to identify their strengths, their patterns, and areas of concern. And then they'll learn different types of useful suggestions and strategies to help, rectify any potential issues. And then they will have an opportunity to kind of grow from what they've done in their assessment with their relationship checkup. So they'll get a deeper understanding of how to connect and help to reinforce their relationship. What I really like about the relationship checkup is that it's only maybe 3 sessions. It can be up to 3 sessions. It's like 30-minute quick, like how you would do your wellness check with your primary care provider. The service member and the spouse or their partner will complete their questionnaire. They will get a printout or I think in some cases you can receive a text of their results. And then you meet with your MFLAC and you go over kind of getting that pulse check on how things are going within your relationship, get that personalized support. And then you can have a way ahead of what areas you might want to work on, whether you can work on that with your chaplain or with your MFLAC or whatever, whoever it may be. You have that information, you're guarded with that information, how to strengthen your relationship. And couples can do this annually. So this is the relationship checkup that's offered through our Military and Family Life Counseling program. I could talk about a few more, but I think I'm going to pause down when he's up all the time. So the relationship checkup is such a great, fun, and easy way for couples to kind of get a pulse check on how things are happening within their relationship.
Thank you for sharing that great tool and resource. I think we could all use a checkup. Maybe we should put it on our calendars with our annual physical that we do and have a relationship checkup that is just as important as the other things that we make sure that we manage and maintain our health and wellness, right? So thank you for sharing that resource. And if we have time, we'll circle back around so you can tell us more about the other ones that you have. Miss Aldana, over to you to tell us what you got.
Yes. You guys are going to see my favorite graphic that we have. It's our range of support slide. I really love this because it always makes me think of the quote where it says, we can't keep pulling people out of the river. We got to go upstream and figure out why they're falling in. But more than that, we have the opportunity to teach people how to swim. And all of these resources, these supports that Military One Source, as well as all the wonderful installation supports, those are little opportunities to swim. And as we take each lesson, we become stronger and stronger in swimming. So when we fall into that water, we fall into that adversity, we're going to go back and be able to swim to shore. And sometimes when it's a little too much, we have our wingmen, we have our family, our friends to be able to pull us to shore as well. But I really love seeing all of these. And I didn't know about all of these resources, even when I was working as an Air Force civilian in community support and prevention. I was like, oh my goodness, we have health and wellness coaching. which that at no cost for our family members and our service members. If you want to run a marathon, that's not my goal, that's some other people's goals. Or if you need nutrition or weight management, or if you want stress management, communication, you have a coach that you can meet up with weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, a great person to help hold you accountable. We have that financial piece that's not just meal tax, it's being able to like, hey, holidays are coming, let's budget for this, or hey, let's learn how to budget. So when we have those times where your car breaks. My husband had 4 deployments. The air conditioning would break, or something would break within the first 24 hours of him deploying. Never failed. How do we make sure that we're prepared for this, or we're swimming for this, so that it doesn't become too overwhelming and you get in over your head? So I was surprised that one of the really great things I love being a person that worked at CONUS is that we have document translation and language interpretation. So if you have a spouse that English is their second language, you can call an interpreter if you need to communicate. You can ask them to translate documents, because how wonderful it is to be able to include people that sometimes don't feel that included if English is their second language. We want to make sure everyone feels included. But we have all of these resources, and the people that are eligible. One of the things that kind of new since before the pandemic, is that veterans are able to use all of the resources on this range of support slide for up to an entire year after their separation. So, and that includes active duty, so it doesn't have to retirement, just separation, active duty, reserve, and our National Guard components, regardless of activation status. So, and your family members can still use this for an entire year. So it's really great to be able to have, and I don't think everyone always knows that.
Thank you, ma'am. A couple thoughts so far. First, we have a couple great visuals in our mind that will be very helpful as key spouses, right? As we work to support families. First, I think of the tumbleweed of life rolling through the storm. And then we have the visual of teaching people how to swim. And so those are great things to think on as we are working in the key spouse realm to be supportive of one another. And then I saw great news in the chat that magnet will be able to order soon, right? The slide that was just shown, so you guys can stick it on your refrigerator and know all of the great things that are available to help us and where we can learn how to swim in those areas. So thank you, ma'am, for sharing. Who's up next? Lieutenant Colonel Snyder. What you got?
So I really like being able to follow the discussion of all of the different services that are available through Military OneSource, because one thing that I as a working in the health promotion realm and counseling and educating people on, particularly on diet changes and how to lead a healthy lifestyle, is that we know that knowledge doesn't equal behavior change. And education doesn't always equal it, and it's definitely challenging, especially when those tumbleweeds come along. And so, really, what a big resource that I'm continually promoting and referring individuals to is actually health coaching. And so taking advantage of those resources that are out there, and because we all need a coach, at one time in our lives. And so really utilizing that and realizing and finally having self-compassion. We're not perfect, and a lot of times we're harder on ourselves than we are on anyone. And so there are going to be days that you just can't fit that exercise in, or that you had an extra piece of birthday cake, but realizing that tomorrow is a new day, and really being compassionate towards yourself is incredibly important.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I will probably always have that extra piece of birthday cake and do better tomorrow. Thank you for those thoughts and sharing. Chaplain Merrifield?
Yeah, compassion for self in our household looks like Ben and Jerry's. quite frequently, so I can resonate with those thoughts. There's a couple of really exciting things that Chaplain Corps is rolling out that I want to share with you. First one is a program under the umbrella of Strong Bonds, and Strong Bonds is really professional development, unity of the team courses. There's some that strengthen family structures, relationships, not only for couples and families, but also singles. And your chaplain corps, the chaplains and the religious affairs airmen in the units that you as key spouses are assigned to, they've been trained on these programs, do lunch and learns, short-term retreats, and they're all fully funded. And so as you hear about some of these things coming up as key spouses, you can help encourage others to go join these activities. And there's another program that's rolling out for first-term airmen, and I'm passionate about this one. It's called the White Rope Program. Our airmen go through Lackland, and they have an opportunity to serve in a volunteer role. And many people at Lackland do it just to get out of other cleaning duties or things that, but when they get to their first base, sometimes when they're in the dorms, they don't see the outlet for volunteerism. And so we try to match airmen with something that they're super passionate about, something that out in the community, that whether it's helping with indigenous plants in Hawaii, or going on a cleanup for the beach, or you can tell I just came from Hawaii, or all of these other things where it connects airmen to other airmen. And once again, coming out of this pandemic, seeing that super important. People want to serve, they want to have meaning and purpose, and this is one of the ways we're able to do it. And they actually get a special duty designator as they join this program, and they'll be able to wear a patch on their uniform as well. And so we're super excited about some of these things coming to fruition, and maybe it'll keep us all from eating too much Ben and Jerry's.
Awesome. Thank you for that, sir. And thank you all for your insights to wellness. It sounds like there's great initiatives and programs and resources and opportunities that have our backs in the community to make all of us a little bit more well, or help us get well if we're in a time of need in those storms of life. It looks like we do have a few extra minutes, Miss Smith, if we want to circle back to you and you can talk about some other things going on in your world.
Yeah, so thank you. I wanted to mention really briefly, and I did not remember this last night, to talk about NeuroFlow. And I believe the Air Force community probably is a little bit familiar with NeuroFlow, but it is something that we are piloting through the Military and Family Life Counseling Program. It is currently being piloted at 3 installations across the services, but for the Air Force, we are currently at Eglin Air Force Base. And NeuroFlow is, how should I describe it? It's a user-friendly, secure and confidential mobile and web application that's used to support resiliency, readiness, and overall well-being of service members and their families. It's designed to help increase resilience, be proactive about wellness, using these behavioral health assessments. There's a variety of different mindfulness and relaxation guides, as well as self-care activities that are on the actual application when someone logs into their NeuroFlow account. Additionally, on this application, those that are participating are able to get resources. That includes access to your MBLAT counselor, to Military OneSource, to resources at your installation on the base. And this is all available through this secure mobile app, which, of course, is available 24/7. And as I mentioned, this is a pilot, so we are kind of testing out to see how it's going. And we are currently at Eglin Air Force Base for the Air Force. So just wanted to give that plug for NeuroFlow, that we're seeing lots of great results and people are really enjoying using this additional resource.
Thank you, ma'am. I see a hand up. Go ahead.
I wanted to add one thing, because I know people, for Military OneSource, as key spouses, you all can make a request for state consultants to come to your installation, come to your event, whether you're about to deploy or returning for deployment, or you have a quarterly, monthly key spouse event. you can ask the state consultant to come in, give an overview of Military One Source, an overview of that range of support slide, ask them to come and bring some promotional materials, and they will be there. Just give them at least 2 weeks notice, and so they can make sure and work out a schedule. And it's at no cost to you, your unit, anyone. Our office completely pays for that. And that's just a great additional resource. I will put the link in the site, but please use that. We love to be able to be there and meet people where they are and provide the things. Because I know sometimes keeping track of all these things, how to get a product, you can just ask them as well as your readiness centers. But I wanted to add that too. I forgot to mention it last night.
Thank you. I'm glad that you got to mention it today. And thank you, Ms. Smith, for sharing that NeuroFlow program. I'm glad that you were able to talk on that today. Sounds like a great pilot, and we'll see where it goes from there. So thank you. All right. It looks like we're closing in on our time for this session. A big thank you to all of our panelists for your time today. I don't know about you all, but if we could just get like a morning pep talk from these folks, I think that would make for a great day. All of their energy and passion is evident. So thank you guys. We appreciate having teammates such as yourself working to provide resources and opportunities to increase wellness for our airmen, guardians, and their families. Let's give them a big Zoom clap round of applause for being here and sharing with us today. Thank you all. If you guys have any questions for them, keep on popping them in the chat. We will make sure that your questions get answered. Even if it's not today, we'll follow up with an email. So if you think of something, don't think you've missed your opportunity, go ahead, pop it in the chat, and we will get it answered. All right, as promised, we are going to take a quick break. This gives us an opportunity to stretch, get a refill of snack, of course. So take a break and we'll see you back shortly.